One area where many students find it really difficult to do the calculations is percentages. So in this part of the session, we shall see how to do percentage related calculations in a simple and smart way. Percentages is one of the most important topics from quantitative aptitude, and there are many other topics like profit and loss, simple interest and compound interest, and many questions from data interpretation are based on percentage calculations. So it is very important for all of us to understand how can we do this percentage based calculations in a simple way. Before we learn anything, let me make it clear that in this session of Speed Maths, we shall not discuss the various formulae and concepts from percentages. That shall be covered when we discuss the topic of percentages. But here we will learn only how to do percentage calculations in a simple way. Before I explain you anything, let us first understand what is our current level of speed and accuracy when it comes to percentage calculations. What I shall do here is ask you some questions from percentages and you all just think of the answer and see if you are able to get the right answer or not in less than 2 seconds. And when I say less than 2 seconds, it is pretty obvious that you cannot put pen on paper. So let's get started. Can you tell me what is 50% of 4,000? I hope you all got the answer. 50% of 4,000 is equal to 2,000. And that's because we all understand that 50% is half. So half of 4,000 will be 2,000. Similarly, what is 50% of 1,200? Yes, that will be 600. So I can understand that you are able to get the answer very quickly. You immediately get the right answer when we say 50% of some value. What is 50% of 3,600? Yes, that's equal to 1,800. Why? Because half of 3,600 is 1,800. Next, can you tell me what is 25% of 400? 25% of 400. I hope you all got the answer. Yes, 100 should be the correct answer. 25% of 400 is equal to 100. And that is because 25% is nothing but a quarter or 1/4 of the given number. So 1/4 of 400 is equal to 100. So we can directly say that 25% of 400 is 100. What is 25% of 1,600? Yes, 1/4 of 1,600. That should be equal to 400. Tell me what is 25% of 4,800? You're right again. 25% of 4,800 is 1,200. Why? Because here again we have to take 1/4 of 4,800, which is equal to 1,200. So this is how 50% and 25% can be calculated very quickly. 50% is half and 25% is 1/4. Similarly, can you answer what is 10% of 680? 10% of 680. Yes, 10% of 680 will be equal to 68. Why? Because 10% is 1/10 of the value. 10% is 1 by 10. So 10% of 680 will be 1 by 10 into 680. 680 by 10 is equal to 68. Similarly, what is 10% of 1,800? That should be 180. Again, 1/10 of 1,800 is 180. What will be 10% of 978? Yes, it will be equal to 97.8. Likewise, 1% is nothing but 1 by 100 of the value. So 1% of 500 will be equal to 5. Why? Because that is 1 by 100 into 500. So 500 by 100 is 5. 1% of 3,200 would be 32. That is again 1 by 100 into 3,200 comes out to be 32. So this is how we can calculate 50%, 25%, 10%, 1% and so on very easily. Why? Because we know what are these percentages in terms of fractions. 50% is 1 by 2, 25% is 1 by 4. 10% is 1 by 10. So as you can see here, each of these percentages is very clearly known to us in terms of its fractions. So that is the reason we are able to do the calculations very fast. But what if I ask you what is 62.5% of 4,800? Has anyone got the answer? No, absolutely no idea. Most of us are not able to get the answer. So let us see how to do these sort of complicated percentage calculations in a simple way. And let me tell you friends, finding out 62.5% of a number is as simple as finding out 50% or 25%, provided you look at the number in a proper way. And that is what we have been learning so far in this session of Speed Maths. Doing these calculations is all about getting the right idea at the right time. Now let's see how do we calculate 62.5% of 4,800 in a general way. Because we are not able to get any idea, we try to do it on paper as follows. 62.5% of 4,800 is equal to what? So this will be taken as 62.5 by 100. Why? Because percentage is nothing but out of 100 into 4,800. So here we see that zeros get cancelled and the answer will be 62.5 into 48. And now we try to multiply these two numbers on paper. So that can be taken as 625 into 48. So 8 into 5 is 40, 8 into 2, 16 and 4 is 20, 8 into 6, 48 and 2 is 50. Then we get 4 into 5 as 20, 2 carry, 4 into 2, 8 plus 2 is 10. Now 1 carry, 4 into 6, 24 and 1 is 25. So the final answer here will be 0, 0, 0, 5 and 5 is 10 and we get 3 here. That means 625 into 48 is 30,000. But since we need 62.5 into 48, the answer will be only 3,000. Why? Because here we have a decimal, so we need to keep a decimal here. So that becomes 3,000. So now we are able to say that 62.5% of 4,800 is equal to 3,000. Answer is correct. No doubt the answer is correct and the method is also correct. But understand, this cannot be done in a competitive exam. Why? Because for such a simple calculation, if we take so much time and write so many steps on paper, it will be very difficult for us to answer the given questions in 30 or 40 seconds. So let us see how to get the answer for this question in a smart way. And that can happen only when you understand that 62.5% is equal to 5 by 8. That is, as we know that 50% is 1 by 2, 25% is 1 by 4, 10% is 1 by 10. That means percentages in terms of its equivalent fractions. Likewise, if you know that 62.5% is equal to 5 by 8, getting the answer would become really very simple. For example, here the calculation can be done as 5 by 8 into 4,800. So 8 into 1 and 8 into 6 is 48 and 5 into 6 is 30. So the answer here will be 3,000. Now try to compare the two methods. Answers are same, but look at the number of steps. Here we write so many steps in the general method, but in this case we hardly write anything on paper. And if you are smart in calculations, even this step is not required. Why? Because we can visualize the answer here. 5 by 8 is 62.5. So 5 by 8 into 4,800. 48 by 8 is 6. 6 into 5 should be 30. So 30 with 2 zeros will give us 3,000. So this is the key in finding out percentage related answers. That is nothing but knowing the given percentage in terms of its equivalent fraction. Like you all know that 50% is 1 by 2, 25% is 1 by 4. You all are supposed to know that 62.5% is equal to 5 by 8. That means we need to really understand what percentage is what fraction. 62.5% is equal to 5 by 8. So once you know this, finding out the answer will become really very easy. Now can you tell me what is 62.5% of 1600? Just try to do this and make sure you don't put pen on paper. 62.5% of 1600. That will be 5 by 8 into 1600. 1600 by 8 is 200 into 5 is 1000. I hope you all got the answer as 1000. So this is how calculations on percentage will become simple if you know what percentage is equal to what fraction. Similarly, let's say the question is 45.45% of 3,300. Can you get the answer? No, it's difficult. You have no idea on how to proceed. And now again you will try to do the calculation in the general procedure. But as I've already mentioned, this is a very lengthy way of getting the answer. You should know that 45.45% is equal to 5 by 11. Now once you know that 45.45% is 5 by 11, try to get the answer. 45.45% of 3,300 will become 5 by 11 into 3,300. Now 33 by 11 is 3. 3 into 5 is 15. So the answer here will be 1500. Are you all able to follow? It is all about visualizing the calculation and getting the answer. But the only thing is you should know what percentage is what fraction. So those who understand that 45.45% is 5 by 11, they will get the answer without writing any step on paper. But those who have no idea about what 45.45% is in terms of its fraction, they have to go for the regular procedure. And this is what will create a difference between you and others in the exam. You all understand that time is like gold and we cannot waste time in doing all this nonsense. So make sure that you learn what percentage is what fraction. I know that you all are curious to understand how should you know what percentage is what fraction. Now I'll help you out in that. What I'll do here is give you a list of standard percentages in terms of fractions. So just try to understand that and practice on it so that next time onwards doing such calculations will become easy for you. So friends, here is the list of percentages in terms of their equivalent fractions. So as you can see here, 100% is equivalent to 1. So whenever we have to find out 100% of a number, we simply multiply it with 1. Or we can say that 100% of any number is equal to that number itself. For example, 100% of 483 is 483. Why? Because that is 1 into 483. So 1 into any number is the number itself. So that is the reason 100% of any given number x should be equal to x. 50% is equal to 1 by 2. So 50% in terms of fraction is equal to 1 by 2, and this we already know. Moving on, we have 33.33% equals to 1 by 3. 25% is 1 by 4. 20% equals to 1 by 5. 16.66% equals to 1 by 6. 14.2857% is equal to 1 by 7. 12.5% is equal to 1 by 8. 11.11% is equal to 1 by 9. 10% is 1 by 10. 9.09% is 1 by 11. And the last one here is 8.33% is equal to 1 by 12. So here we have some percentages in terms of their equivalent fractions. So for example, if we need to find out what is 8.33% of 2400, from this we know that 8.33% is equal to 1 by 12. So 8.33% of 2400 is equal to 1 by 12 of 2400. Now 1 by 12 into 2400 will be 200. Why? Because 24 by 12 is 2. 2 into 100 will be 200. So as you can see here, if you remember that 8.33% is 1 by 12, finding out the percentage is very easy. But otherwise, it will be very difficult. Why? Because we have to do the calculation on paper as 8.33 by 100 into 1200, and that will take a lot of time. So make sure that you remember all these standard percentages in terms of their equivalent fractions. Similarly, let's say we have to find out what is 16.66% of 2400. Now 16.66% as we know here is 1 by 6. So 16.66% of 2400 should be 1 by 6 into 2400. Now 1 by 6 into 2400 will be equal to 400. Why? Because 2400 by 6 is 400. So this is how we can apply this concept of percentages in terms of fractions in doing the percentage based calculations easily. You might be wondering, where is 62.5% here as we have discussed earlier, or what about 45.45%? That is not available. If that is what you feel, then you are wrong again. Remember, these are not just 12 percentages in terms of their equivalent fractions. Here we have almost 40 to 50 percentages in terms of their fractions. But the only point is they are hidden here and we need to bring them out. For example, as you can see here, 33.33% is equal to 1 by 3. So that is one percentage that we can see here. But if we multiply both the sides by 2, the equation doesn't change. So let us multiply left hand side by 2 and the right hand side by 2. So 33.33% into 2 is 66.66%. And 1 by 3 into 2 is 2 by 3. So now we can also say that 66.66% is equal to 2 by 3. Similarly, we can multiply both the sides by 3. The equation doesn't change. So 33.33 into 3 is 99.99. 1 by 3 into 3 is equal to 1. So 99.99% is equal to 1. We understand that 99.99 is equal to almost 100%. Why? Because that's actually 33.33 up to infinity. So we get 99.9999 up to infinity. So that can be taken as 100%. So 100% is 3 into 1 by 3, that is equal to 1. And that already we know 100% is 1. So what we can understand here is, we know that 33.33% equals to 1 by 3. But we can also find out the multiples of 33.33. So we know what is 1 by 3. We also have to find out 2 by 3 and 3 by 3. Similarly, in this case, we know that 25% is equal to 1 by 4. I can multiply both the sides by 2 or by 3 or by 4 and so on. So 25% into 2 is 50%. 1 by 4 into 2 is 2 by 4. That is equal to 1 by 2. So 50% is 1 by 2, which we already know from the second point here. 50% equals to 1 by 2. But when we multiply both the sides by 3, we get a new percentage. For example, 25% into 3 is equal to 75%. And 1 by 4 into 3 is 3 by 4. So very clearly, 75% will be equivalent to 3 by 4. So from now onwards, 75% is not 75% for us. It is 3 by 4. That is what is the difference between a normal student and a smart student. For a normal student, 75% is 75%. But for smart students like us, 75% is 3 by 4. And that helps us get the answer faster. For example, if I say what is 75% of 2800, you can get the answer very quickly by taking it as 3 by 4. 75% of 2800 is 3 by 4 into 2800. 2800 by 4 is 700 into 3 will be 2100. So it's all about knowing what percentage is what fraction and able to do the calculation without writing it on paper. That gives you the answer much faster. So 75% of 2800 is 2100. Tell me what is 75% of 6400? You have 3 seconds for this. 1, 2, and time up. I hope you all have got the answer. 75% of 6400 should be 4800. Why? Because 75% is not 75%. It's 3 by 4. 3 by 4 into 6400 or 6400. 64 by 4 is 16. 16 into 3 is 48. 48 followed by 2 zeros gives us 4800. So that's how you can use these percentages and their fractions in finding out various percentage based calculations. So 25% into 3, 1 by 4 into 3. Likewise, multiply both the sides by 4. 25% into 4 is 100%. 1 by 4 into 4 is 1. 100% is equal to 1. That is what we know from the first statement here. 100% is equal to 1. So the point here is, we know what is 1 by 4. Try to find out 2 by 4, 3 by 4 and 4 by 4. Likewise, 20% is equal to 1 by 5. You know what is 1 by 5. Find out 2 by 5, 3 by 5, 4 by 5 up to 5 by 5. That means multiply the equation with 2, then 3, then 4 and then 5 to get various other percentages. So 20% is 1 by 5, 40% will be 2 by 5 into 2 on both the sides. 60% will be 3 by 5, 80% will be 4 by 5, 100% will be 5 by 5. 5 by 5 is 1. Likewise, 16.66% equals to 1 by 6. We know what is 1 by 6. Find out 2 by 6, 3 by 6, 4 by 6, 5 by 6, 6 by 6. And find out what are these percentages. So 16.66% equals to 1 by 6. If I multiply both the sides by 2, we get 33.33%. So 33.33% should be 1 by 6 into 2. Why? Because that's multiplication with 2. 1 by 6 into 2 is 2 by 6 or 1 by 3. So 33.33% is 1 by 3. That we already know. 33.33 is 1 by 3. Multiply both the sides with 3. 16.66 into 3 will give us 49.99. That can be taken as 50%. And 1 by 6 into 3 is 3 by 6. 1 by 2. 50% is 1 by 2. Next, when we multiply both the sides by 4, we get 66.66%. 66.66% here is 4 by 6. Why? Because that is multiplication with 4. 66.66% will be equal to 4 by 6. 4 by 6 is 2 by 3. From this particular percentage, we already know that 66.66% is 2 by 3. So that's how there might be some repetitions, but in every fraction you get to know 1 or 2 new percentages. For example, here when we multiply both the sides by 5, try to multiply 16.66 with 5, we get 83.33%. And what we get on the right hand side? 1 by 6 into 5, that is 5 by 6. So from now onwards, 83.33% is not 83.33%, it is 5 by 6. So if you can remember this, calculation of 83.33% will become just a 2-second job. 83.33% of, let's say 1800. What is 83.33% of 1800? Yes, that is equal to 1500. Why? Because 83.33% is 5 by 6. 5 by 6 of 1800. 1800 by 6 is 300. 300 into 5 is 1500. So that is how we can create a huge difference in percentage calculations if we remember these percentages in terms of their equivalent fractions. I agree that all the percentages in terms of their fractions cannot be learned, but at least if you are perfect with these values and their multiples, it will be very, very easy for us. So here we know 1 by 6, you have to find out 2 by 6, 3 by 6, 4 by 6, 5 by 6, up to 6 by 6. So write it on a sheet of paper and make sure that you learn them by heart and use them efficiently. Likewise, here again we have 6 different percentages in terms of their fractions. So when we take their multiples, we get the required answers. 14.2857% equals to 1 by 7. So we know what is 1 by 7. Find out 2 by 7, 3 by 7, 4 by 7, 5 by 7, 6 by 7 and 7 by 7. 7 by 7 anyway it will be 100, but 2 by 7, 3 by 7, 4 by 7, 5 by 7 and 6 by 7 will give us 6 different percentage values. So make sure you write all the multiples of 1 by 7 here and multiples of 14.2857 on the other side and understand them and remember them. 12.5% equals to 1 by 8. Now here let's multiply both the sides by 2. 12.5 into 2, 25. 1 by 8 into 2, 2 by 8 or 1 by 4. 25% equals to 1 by 4, which is already known to us. Multiply by 3, 12.5% into 3 is 37.5%. 1 by 8 into 3 is 3 by 8. So from this moment onwards, 37.5% is not 37.5%. It will be equal to 3 by 8. So as and when we need 37.5%, you simply take it as 3 by 8. Now for example, can you tell me what is 37.5% of 7,200? Time is up. This is what you are supposed to do in the exam. Within this time, you get the answer. And that can happen only if you remember this percentage in terms of fraction. The question was 37.5%. We know that 37.5% is 3 by 8 by taking multiples of this particular percentage. So if 37.5% is 3 by 8, 37.5% of 7,200 will be 3 by 8 into 7,200. 72 by 8 is 9. 9 into 3, 27. So the answer there is 2700. And now you also try to understand that what happens if you forget the fraction. For example, for some time let's assume that you don't know what is 37.5% in terms of fraction. What do you do in that case? You cannot do anything. You have to go for the general procedure and get the answer. And now you very well understand that going by the regular method takes a lot of time. So make sure you are perfect with all these percentages and their equivalent fractions. And not only these percentages, you have to practice on all their multiples as well. Let's multiply both the sides by 5. See what do we get. 12.5 into 5 will be equal to 62.5. 62.5% equals to 1 by 8 into 5. Multiplication with 5 on both the sides. So 1 by 8 into 5 is 5 by 8. So 62.5% equals to 5 by 8. Do you remember we have used this particular percentage in the example taken before? The question was 62.5% of 4,800. And there I told you that 62.5% is 5 by 8. So don't worry, where did I get that fraction from? I got that fraction from this particular percentage. 12.5 is 1 by 8, multiply both the sides by 5. We get 62.5% equals to 5 by 8. So don't be under an impression that the percentages that were asked to you are not available here. All of them are available, only thing is you have to take them out. You have to bring them out by taking the multiples. So 62.5 is 5 by 8. Similarly, I can say 87.5 is 7 by 8. Moving on to next one, 11.11 is 1 by 9. Now this is a very easy one. 11.11% equals to 1 by 9. Now we know what is 1 by 9. We need to find out 2 by 9, 3 by 9 up to 9 by 9. So 2 by 9 will be 22.22. 3 by 9, 33.33. 3 by 9 is 1 by 3. So 33.33 is 3 by 9, or we can say 1 by 3. 44.44 will be 4 by 9. 55.55, 5 by 9. 77.77, 7 by 9. So this is how we can make the calculation simple by practicing on all the multiples. Likewise, 10% equals to 1 by 10. This again is a very simple one. 10 is 1 by 10, 20% is 2 by 10, 30% is 3 by 10, 40% is 4 by 10 and so on. Now if you look at 9.09% equals to 1 by 11. Here we know that 9.09% is 1 by 11. So 9.09% of any value should be equal to 1 by 11 of the value. For example, 9.09% of 4,400 is equal to what? 9.09% of 4,400 is equal to what? We know that 9.09% is 1 by 11. So we can say 9.09% of 4,400 will be 1 by 11 of 4,400, and that will be equal to 400. So that's how it becomes really very simple if you can mug up what these percentages are in terms of their fractions. Now if I ask you what is 45.45%, you should not get confused. 45.45% will be one of the multiples of this particular fraction and percentage. 9.09 into 5. 9.09 into 5 will be 45.45, and that will be equal to 5 by 11 on this side. Why? Because we are multiplying both the sides by 5. So 45.45 is 5 by 11. Likewise, we can say 63.63 is 7 by 11, or 54.54 is 6 by 11. 81.81 is 9 by 11. The only thing is you should write down all the multiples and make sure you remember them by heart. And the last one here is 8.33% equals to 1 by 12. So if you take all the multiples of 1 by 12 on this side and 8.33 on the other side, you will get many more percentages. So 1 by 12 is known to us. We need to find out 2 by 12, 3 by 12, 4 by 12, 5 by 12, up to 12 by 12. For example, I have to find out 58.33% of some value. I very well understand that 58.33% equals to 7 by 12, because I know that 8.33 is 1 by 12, and when I take all the multiples at one particular point, I'll get 58.33%, and that will be equal to 7 by 12 on the other side. So if I know that it is 7 by 12, calculation is easy. Otherwise, I have to go for the regular procedure. So the key point here is these percentages in terms of fractions. So make sure you practice on them, write all the multiples, remember them by heart, and use them as and when required. Before we move on to the next part from percentages, let me just show you with one example that how to take up these multiples. For example, we know that 20% is equal to 1 by 5. So let us understand how to take the various multiples of 20% so that you don't have any confusion regarding the multiples. Now I'll be doing it only for 20%, you can try it for all the remaining percentages like 16.66, 12.5 and so on. So here 20% is equal to 1 by 5. Let us assume that this is equation number 1. Now equation number 1 when multiplied with 2, that means we are multiplying both the sides by 2. So 20% into 2, 40%, 1 by 5 into 2, 2 by 5. Equation number 1, that means the first equation here multiplied with 3. 20% into 3, 60%. 1 by 5 into 3, 3 by 5. Then equation number 1 into 4, 20% into 4, 80%, 1 by 5 into 4, 4 by 5. And the last one, equation number 1 into 5, 20% into 5 is 100%, and 1 by 5 into 5 will be 5 by 5, which is equal to 1. So this is how we can simply take the given percentage in terms of its equivalent fraction and then find out all the multiples by multiplying both the sides with 2, 3, 4 and so on. Another important point that I would like to mention before we move on with percentage calculations is about the number 142857. We have already learned that 14.2857% equals to 1 by 7. And like in case of 20%, here also we can take all the multiples of 1 by 7 and find out the respective percentages. But then there is something special about the number 142857. And this particular specialty of this number helps us remember all its multiples without any difficulty. Let us understand what is special about this number. The number 142857 is one of the cyclic numbers. It is called a cyclic number. Now this is called a cyclic number because when we multiply this number with 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on, we get the same digits in all the answers. But the digits just get displaced. That means the starting digit will be something else, but the order of the digits remains same. For example, 14.2857% equals to 1 by 7. When we multiply both the sides by 2, see what we get. 1 by 7 into 2 is 2 by 7. And when we multiply 14.2857 with 2, what we get is 28.5714. Now if you observe, here we had 142857. In the next case, if you try to observe, the digits are all same. The order is also same, but the only point is starting digit has changed. So here if we start from this point, 1, 4, and again we continue the cycle, we get 142857. That's exactly like the previous case, 142857. That means in every multiple here, we are going to get the same digits, but they just rotate by some place. For example, when we multiply both the sides by 3, we get 42.8571. Now again, if you observe, it's like 142857. Even the next one, 142857, 142857, 142857. So this uniqueness about 142857 will help us remember these percentages without any difficulty. The only point that has to be observed here is initially we have the number starting with 1. That means the first multiple starts with 1. The second multiple here starts with 2. Third one starts with 4. Fourth one starts with 5. Fifth one starts with 7. And the sixth one starts with 8. Now if you observe, all these numbers are in increasing order. The first one is 1, 2, then 4, 5, 7, 8. So if I remember this particular cycle 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, it is easy for me to find out the percentages. For example, let's say we want what is 14.2857 into 3. Now in the digits there 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, the third digit as per the ascending order is 4. So the number should start with 4. So I can say it should be 428571. And by keeping a decimal we get 42.8571. That is a multiple of 1 by 7. That is the third multiple of 1 by 7. Similarly, let's say this particular percentage 14.2857 has to be multiplied with 4. Now if I look at the digits, the fourth digit as per the ascending order here is 5. So very clearly the fourth multiple should start with 5. So that is the reason here we have 57.1428, that is equal to 4 by 7. So simply remember that the same digits are there in all the multiples of 1 by 7. But the only point is they get rotated by some point. And you can simply remember the order 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8 to remember the multiples there. So in this way the multiples of 14.2857 can be understood very easily. Let us now take some questions based on percentage calculations. As I've already mentioned, the key to do this is to remember that what percentage is what fraction. I understand that it will take some time for you guys to remember those percentages in terms of its equivalent fractions. Why? Because you have just learnt it. But assuming that you know all those values, let us go ahead with the calculation of these percentages. The first one, as you can see here, is 44.44% of 5,400. We understand that 44.44% is 4 by 9. So 4 by 9 into 5,400. 9 here goes 6 times. 6 into 4 is 24. So the answer here will be 2,400. And let me tell you friends, if you are good in visualization, writing this step as well is not required. We can simply remember that it is 4 by 9 into 5,400. So 54 by 9 is 6 and 6 into 4 is 24. So the answer here will be 2,400. Likewise, 87.5% of 64. I know that 87.5% here is 7 by 8. So 7 by 8 into 64. 64 by 8 is 8. 8 into 7 is 56. So 56 is the answer for question number 2. The third one here is 72.72% of 880. We very well understand that 72.72% is 8 by 11. So 8 by 11 into 880. 88 by 11 is 8. 8 into 8 is 64. 64 with a 0 here. So the answer should be 640. Moving on to the next one, the question is 37.5% of 3,600. So if you remember that 37.5% is 3 by 8, the answer can be taken as 3 by 8 into 3,600. But the point here is 36 has to be divided by 8 and 36 is not exactly divisible by 8. 36 by 8 is like 9 by 2 and 9 by 2 is 4.5. So 4.5 into 3. 4.5 into 3 will be 13.5 and 13.5 multiplied with 100 will give us 1350. So the answer for this question will be 1350. Now the next one here is 45% of 2,400. This is an important one. 45% of 2,400. Why this is important here is because 45% in terms of fractions is not known to us. If you take any of the given fractions or any of their multiples, you will not get 45% among them. Of course, we can decide what is 45% in terms of fractions, but the list that we had taken will not give you 45% in terms of fractions. So here we have no idea what exactly is 45% in terms of fractions. So how to do such percentage calculations where the fraction is not known to us? Here comes the technique of split and merge. You remember, we have used split and merge in case of addition and subtractions, and we also used it in case of multiplications. The same technique of split and merge can also be used in case of percentages. Let us see how to apply split and merge and get the answer for this one. The question here is 45% of 2,400. Now you should be able to decide what is the best way to break 45% into 2 parts or 3 parts as per the requirement. Here 45% can be taken as 50% minus 5%. So we can say 45% of 2400 will be equal to 50% minus 5% of 2400. Why? Because 45 is nothing but 50 minus 5. Now if we try to expand this, we get 50% of 2400 minus 5% of 2400. 50% of 2400, we know that 50% is half. So 50% of 2400 will be 1200. And if 50% of 2400 is 1200, it is obvious that 5% of 2400 will be 120. Why? Because 5% is 50% by 10. It is 1/10 of 50%. So if 50% is 1200, 1/10 of 1200 will be 120. So directly we can say that the answer here is 1200 minus 120, which comes out to be 1080. So this is how we can break the given percentage as per our convenience and get the required answer. So 45% is not 45%. It is 50% minus 5%. The advantage here is finding out 50% of any number doesn't take any time. Why? Because we understand that 50% is half of the value. And once we get 50%, finding out 5% will become even easier. Why? Because 5% is 50% by 10. So whatever is 50%, that by 10 will give us 5%. So 1200 minus 120 is the answer for this question. Remember friends, 45% can also be taken as 40 plus 5%, no doubt about that. But the problem is, calculation of 40% is not so easy as calculation of 50%. And even if we can find out 40%, finding out 5% out of 40% is difficult. Whereas finding out 5% out of 50% is a very simple job. So this is how you should be able to decide what is the best way to split the given percentage. So split it into two parts, do the individual calculations and merge them to get the required answer. Let's take one more example to understand this calculation of 45%. Can you tell me what is 45% of 1600? Just try this out. And remember, these steps need not be written here. I am writing all these steps only to explain you the procedure. But as such, we need not write all the steps on paper. You can simply do the calculation by visualizing the steps there. So the question was 45% of 1600. Just try to get the answer there. 45% is nothing but 50% minus 5%. So 45% of 1600 will become 50% of 1600 minus 5% of 1600. What is 50% of 1600? 800. If 50% is 800, 5% will be 80. 800 minus 80 is 720. So that's how 45% can be calculated in a very simple and straightforward way. Take it as 50% minus 5%. And as I've already mentioned, there is no hard and fast rule that always 45 should be taken as 50 minus 5. Here we are taking it as 50 minus 5 only because it is comfortable for us. Otherwise it can also be taken as 40 plus 5 or 30 plus 15 or 20 plus 25 as per your convenience. So try to break the percentage as per your convenience and merge the calculations to get the answer. Let us now take the next one, 63% of 1600. Again the same problem. 63% in terms of fractions is not available in the list that I gave you. And even if you take all the multiples, you will not find 63% anywhere in the list. So how to find out 63%? The same rule can be applied. Break it and merge it. Split and merge. 63 is not 63. It can be taken as 50 plus 13. Or for that matter, 13 again can be taken as 10 plus 3. So overall, 63% becomes 50% plus 10% plus 3%. Now we can calculate all these percentages individually and then add all of them to get the required answer. 50% of 1600 we know is 800. So 50% is 800. Plus 10% of 1600. 10% of the number is 1/10 of the value. So 10% of 1600 will become 160. And the last part here is 3%. 3% of 1600. We know that 1% of 1600 is 16. So if 1% is 16, what will be 3%? 3% is nothing but 1% into 3. So 16 into 3, 48. So 3% of 1600 will be 48. And when we merge all these three numbers, we get the required answer. 800 plus 160 is 960. 960 plus 48 is 1008. So that's the answer for the last one here. That is 63% of 1600 should be equal to 1008. Again, as I told you, you can also take it as 50 plus 13 if you are comfortable. Otherwise, it can be taken as 70% minus 7% of 1600. So this is how we can use the concept of split and merge in finding out those percentages where the fraction is not known to us. So first of all, prepare on the fractions and use split and merge as and when required.